Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and it is Sunday, the 16th of March in the year 2025, and I am broadcasting this from lovely, beautiful, exquisite Escazú, Costa Rica. And I am here on this Sunday to talk to you about the week ahead in astrology. And what a week it has already been, and what time ahead for us. So, as you know, we have had an eclipse, and there was an eclipse on Thursday night, Friday morning. Friday, in probably most of the world, Friday the 14th, there was an eclipse. It was a lunar eclipse, full moon, at 23 degrees Virgo, which is where the moon was, and the sun at 23 degrees Pisces. And I talked a lot about this last week. This is, the opening of the eclipse corridor, what we call the eclipse corridor, which is not the eclipse path, the path it takes on the geographical map. This is the time from the first eclipse to the second and last eclipse, which occurs on March 29th. And that eclipse will be a solar eclipse. It will be a new moon eclipse in the sign of Aries. So what about all of this? I have been talking a lot, and if you read my blog, if you're on my mailing list, which I highly recommend you join, you can do it on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. And my mailing list, I put out a blog, and I hadn't put one out in a while, and it was very important to do that this time because the nature of the eclipses is always of interest to people, and we need to deal with the emotions and the feelings and the experience around the eclipses and how they affect us, right? And then we have what else is going on, which is this whole dynamic between Pisces and Aries. Now, not only are we in Pisces season, but, the eclipse, the sun was in Pisces. And then the next eclipse, it's going to be in Aries. So we've got Pisces, Aries right there. We had Venus and Mercury, which are now both retrograde because Mercury went retrograde yesterday morning. And both of them went into Aries and are going back into Pisces, and then will eventually go back into Aries again once they go direct. We have Saturn and Neptune, which are in Pisces at the end of Pisces, and then they're going to go into Aries. And in fact, Neptune is going to go into Aries on the 30th of March. So that's going to be in a couple of weeks. So there is a heavy theme of endings and new beginnings because Pisces is the end of the zodiac. As you know, it is the last sign of the zodiac before we start the zodiac anew. Now, we are having this week in the northern hemisphere, spring equinox, in the southern hemisphere, the autumn equinox. And of course, it's when the sun enters Aries and leaves Pisces. And this is a very dramatic experience this year because so much is happening there. Yes, every year, Sun, Mercury, Venus, they do this. They go over Pisces into Aries. But Saturn and Neptune are not with them. And there's not usually eclipses in those signs. And Venus and Mercury happen to be retrograde, so they're doing it a couple of times. So this is something very big. This is a big theme in all of our lives. And it's something we really do need to pay attention to as we experience the flip from 29 degrees Pisces to 0 degrees Aries. And this, as I have said before, and if you've heard me talk about on this podcast, I've repeated the story that my mentor, my teacher used to say, that flip is the Easter story. 29 Pisces is the Christian symbolism. It's the end. It's when the greatest sacrifice that in Christianity, and if you were, if you're familiar with that, in Christianity, when Christ dies on the cross and then is risen, he's risen. The rising is Aries. The dying on the cross is 29 degrees Pisces. This is the end of something deep and profound turning into something else. Now, Pisces is a sign of mythology. It's a sign of faith and belief systems. And so whether it's organized religion or your own faith in the universe or Mother Nature or whatever you believe in, this is the sign, this is the end of something. It is the return of the sun god after the long winter, which we also have at the winter solstice, right? Because the days get shorter, and then the shortest day of the year is the solstice, and then the light comes back. So this is when, in the northern hemisphere at least, the sun comes back and spring is coming. And I've said this many, many times before, but we are in the throes of watching this in our lives, okay? What is the symbolism in our own lives of that flip between the end and the new beginning, between the old day and the new day, the end of disillusionment and the time of surrender before we wake up and something pokes itself up and out of the cold, dark earth. It's the story of spring, right? And it's, it's when we completely go into the darkest night of the soul, the darkest moment, the darkest hour before the dawn. That's what this is. And if you've been toiling away at something and you're working on something in your life, whatever that may be, personal, career, etc., belief in something, healing yourself, if you are in a place of building something and you are at the last threads of your patience or your hope or your belief, what happens then is we snap our fingers and flip to 0 degrees Aries, and this is like it all comes back. Hope comes back. The daffodils bloom. The crocuses poke their head up. You're restored and renewed in your beliefs. It is also a time, with all of this at the end of Pisces, which we're going to have this week, where the sun is, it's a time of great exhaustion, okay? And it's our experience of stepping out of the disillusionment into the new day with fresh energy and realizing, I still can go on and do what I need to do. It's when you're at the end of your tether and you have no more energy for it. It's really exhausting. That is the theme of now. We're going to get exhausted. We're going to be tired. We're not going to want to continue. We're going to be at the end of our tether. We are going to be not believing in ourselves and what we had faith in all along. And it's the sign of the times right now. It's the way it is. It's like, I just can't give any more of my faith or belief to this. And then the next day we wake up and the sun is at 0 degrees Aries, or Neptune is at 0 degrees Aries. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is okay. I think I'm a renewed spirit right now. It's the self-destructive side of Pisces that wants to throw in the towel, that doesn't want to continue on the road, that doesn't want to continue being tortured by their situation, and they're exhausted, right? So it's, we have every right to be exhausted and then want to take a nap or go to sleep and not really follow through. But if we have something near and dear to our hearts in our life, it's really important for us to see it through. And that's what this is about. My teacher used to say that the self-destructive side of Pisces should be called, oh, the hell with it. And, I understand that. So that gives you the vibe of what we're dealing with. Oh, the hell with it. Like there's a part of us that wants to say, oh, the hell with it right now. And we can't do that, So let's talk about when this is happening. The first part of this is going to be the sun this week is going to change signs, and it's going to go into Aries. And that's when we have the equinox on Thursday at 5:01 a.m. Eastern time. Okay. Now, what's going to happen? Well, we know that Neptune is in Pisces. We know that Neptune is at the end of Pisces. We know that Neptune is at 29 Pisces, which is why everything feels so arduous, exhausting, never ending, and certainly there's an ounce of, oh, the hell with it, right? So that Neptune is going to receive the sun on Wednesday, the 19th, and that's going to be 7:25 p.m. Eastern time. So that experience of the sun going over Neptune is going to highlight the Neptune qualities and also highlight the end of Pisces. And this doesn't happen very often because by the time Neptune got to 29 Pisces, it was July of last year. So we weren't getting the sun conjunct Neptune at 29 Pisces. We're getting it this year for the first time. And then we're getting this, and then flip hours later, not even 12 hours later, the sun goes into Aries. Okay, so sun is greeting Neptune, Neptune at the end of its own sign, at the end of the zodiac, at the end of everything. And then we go into Aries. The sun is exalted in Aries. It likes to be in Aries. It is at its true exaltation at 19 degrees Aries, which occurs around April 9th or so. And when we are dealing with this energy, we are dealing now with the sun in a strong place. 0 degrees Aries is good luck. Aries is good luck. Aries happens anyway. It's always going to happen. It's always a new day, right? So every year we have this jump from the old zodiac to the new zodiac, and people say, oh yes, the zodiac actually begins on March 20th because that's when the sun enters Aries, or 21st, whatever happens that year. Last year was leap year. It was more like the 21st. So we were expecting this. We're expecting this. But what's then going to happen is, Mercury and Venus have already done this year. They've already made their leap, but they're going back. So they said, going out for a bit, coming back later. And that's what they're doing. And we are now going to experience the sun there in Aries. And so, this week we'll start to have 3 planets in Aries. And then what's going to happen is Venus is going to go back into Pisces, not this week, but next week at the 27th, the end of next week. And Venus will go back into Pisces, and then eventually Mercury will go back into Pisces. But what's going to happen on the 30th is Neptune is going to go into Aries at 8 a.m. Eastern time. That's not this week. That's not for 2 weeks. But we have to be aware we're at the end of something big because we're ending the zodiac and Neptune's transit of the entire zodiac over the last 165 years, 168 years, give or take. And so this is something profound. But Neptune's not staying in Aries. It's doing the back and forth. It's going to stay in Aries for a while, then retrograde it toward the end of the year, then go back into Pisces, and then go back into Aries next year. So we're going to get a taste of Neptune in Aries and what that feels like. And this is something profound because we've never seen this in our lifetime before. We've never seen this. This is something from long ago. Yes, there's people talking about the fact that the last time Neptune was in Aries, it was the Civil War in the United States. Sure. But that doesn't mean that there's going to be the Civil War again. It's, not 1800s. It's not. We're in a very different place. There could be. But there's a backdrop of war at any time in our lives. At any time. You'll find a war somewhere, okay? So there's always something warlike going on. And there's your Aries, right? There's your Aries energy. Not good to start a war on 29 Pisces. I think they started the Iraq war at 29 Pisces when the sun was at 29 Pisces. So this is a big deal. This shift from Pisces to Aries. Now, what I want everyone to do, and if you read my blog, I'm asking you where that is in your chart, because that 0 degrees Aries point is where we have this turn of luck, okay? And 0 degrees Aries is the world axis. And people who get famous usually have a 0 Aries or a world axis point in their chart, whether it's 0 Aries, 0 Capricorn, 0 Libra, 0 Cancer. One of those world axis points could be in their chart, and then sometimes they have midheaven there or midpoints there. So ascendant, it doesn't mean that you have to be born on the first day of Aries or Libra or something. It just means that something relates to that axis. And there's other points too, like 15 fixed is another world axis point. So But what I want to stress here is that that point, wherever it falls in your astrological chart, it is a point of good luck. It's a point of being able to turn it around, flip the story, and go on with your life in a whole new day. Okay? So you want to pay attention to that. You want to pay attention to where that is in your chart. Now, if you haven't had your chart read, well, then, of course, I suggest that you get in contact with me and we can look at this zero Aries and where Neptune is going for you. And, this isn't just Neptune. Then Saturn's going to do this too in a few months. So we've got a big story here going from Pisces to Aries. The where I'm about to lose my faith to, wow, I've just regained my faith. Okay? Life is good again. I wake up and it's a new day. I was so exhausted. And how many times have we done that just in a regular life? You're exhausted. You can't keep your eyes open. You have to go to bed. You go to bed and then you get up the next morning and you feel like a new person. Right? This is where we experience the exhaustion of ourselves. Right now, we're experiencing the sun is exhausted. It's exhausted when it crawls to the end of the zodiac. There's a certain pointlessness to the effort. Why bother? Oh, the hell with it, right? It feels like old age. But at the end of the zodiac, we need to have faith in the darkness. And knowing that the sun is always going to come up tomorrow, right? And it's always going to shine again. Okay, maybe it's raining, but it's light out, right? It's light out. And when we experience the new day of zero Aries, we have a renewed sense of, well, there's a point to this. I'm not so exhausted anymore. My faith paid off. It's this point that we are going to re-experience again and again. And I expect that, we get this every year with the sun, like I said, but when Neptune gets there, what we're experiencing now for the next 2 weeks, this is a big deal. Neptune going to Aries, this is a sense of tremendous aloneness. It's feeling like there's meaningless attachment. There is, again, pointlessness. But this is all on the inside where it's happening. Everything on the outside will disappoint you. You don't want to look to the outside to feel better. People do things, addiction, self-destructive behavior, all of that, oh, the hell with it energy. It's because you're looking to the outer world for it. You've got to go in. You've got to go inside and do the work. And surrender to what the universal plan is for you. Okay? This is something that we need to be aware of, and how this is going to be the next phase of our lives, the next chapter. What is the universal plan for you? It comes around when you go to zero Aries. You get the picture, you get the point. But when you surrender, heaven works for you. That's when you surrender. The universe carries you to a place and puts you in a miracle. That's what happens when you surrender. And that's what we're learning about now. This incredible sense of surrender. Whether it's this week when the sun enters Aries after the long stretch in Pisces, or whether it's when Neptune goes in on the 30th, or how we feel when we've got Venus and Mercury bouncing back and forth, and eventually they go into Aries again, and it feels like a new day. Everything may feel pointless right now, but we've got to get through it. We have to, okay? So we're going to watch ourselves and pay close attention this week as we get from the sun on Neptune to then going into Aries between Wednesday and Thursday. These are big moments, right? And the eclipse just kind of drove some of that home, as the sun component of the eclipse was with Neptune and the North Node and Saturn in Pisces. And I can assure you that when Saturn does this in a few months, Saturn is going to make us really feel exhausted, really. And we're really going to see no point to things. But we're not there yet, so let's focus on one planet at a time. This morning, I gave a lecture to the Internations group about the eclipses, and I talked about how Venus and Mercury stationed, each one at 10 degrees. Venus was at 10 and Mercury stationed at 9, and the second eclipse is going to be at 9 degrees of Aries. And so both of them stationed in Aries on the eclipse point that's coming in 2 weeks. And what they are going to retrograde back to, especially Venus, is going to retrograde back to where we just were, this eclipse, the sun portion of the eclipse, not the moon, which is really the eclipse, and how those planets are going to be triggering this eclipse over and over. And both eclipses really. And so how was the eclipse for you? I actually didn't feel so bad. I was exhausted. I was exhausted for sure. And I just kept an eye on things and I kept working and doing my things. But I was I've been working through a lot of deep emotional stuff, through programs I'm in, on my own, etc. But this whole experience of this eclipse, to me, I was bracing myself for something much more intense and cathartic and harder. But I didn't find it that way. It doesn't mean that you didn't find it that way and other people didn't. I don't have a planet right where the eclipse is either. I would say the energy was intense. I would say that the energy definitely felt heightened. And I did talk to people who didn't sleep. And actually the morning after the eclipse, like Friday morning, my cat, badgered me and woke me up too early. So I was tired from that. But I didn't hear catastrophic stories from the people around me. So I was happy about that. Eclipses last until Mars and or Saturn pass over them. So I was asked as part of the lecture today, how long this lasts. And the impact, really, the direct impact is the entire time that we are in the eclipse corridor, which is the beginning to the second eclipse. And that's, from Thursday, Friday to the 29th of March. And so that eclipse, that Virgo eclipse, 23, 24 degrees, Mars will reach that 24-degree Virgo at the end of July, towards the end of July. And then, we may have the final bump when that Mars gets there. Now, Mars is going to take a long time to get there just because of the retrograde it experienced a few months ago. Well, actually, stopped on the 23rd of February, so it's not even a month since it's ended. But the experience of Mars going over that will give a finality to that eclipse. And then the second eclipse, which is at 9 Aries, will get Mars to that next April. And then a few days later, Saturn will come and conjunct that 9-degree Aries point. So both Mars and Saturn are going to go to where that eclipse is, and they're going to finalize that for us. Okay? So what we're going to experience now is the intensity of Mercury retrograde while there's eclipses, and Venus retrograde while there's eclipses. Things are going to feel more internal. We're going to be emotional. We're going to be reflecting. This is a great time to do healing work. It's a great time to do powerful internal stuff that's going to move your life forward when all of these planets go forward. This is a great time to look inside. And remember what I just said about Neptune. While Neptune, and we're at the end of Pisces, and Neptune's at the end of Pisces, we're not looking to the outer world for satisfaction and answers. We've got to go inside. So Mercury and Venus are going to assist us in doing that. And it's important to pay attention to that. Do your journaling. Start a meditation practice. It's really important to do something like this at this time. And meditation would be a great thing to do. If you don't have a meditation practice, start working with that. Start, working with prayer, meditation, journaling, anything that's going to give you that inner voice that you're listening to, okay? Anything that's going to help you tap into that and help you tap into source. Okay? So this is something really that we need to pay attention to. Absolutely. And we think Mercury retrograde is weak. It's not. It's actually generally very strong. And if you have Mercury retrograde in your natal chart, it's a strong thing. It sort of drives that message home a little more because it's closer to the earth, because it's moving more slowly, because it's retreading over a place it's been to before. It's not a weak thing. It's strong. And if any of your communications have gone awry, Mercury retrograde will bring them home to you. It will bring it back to you so you can revisit with it and reconnect to it. It's really important. So I advise you during this time, and that's why you listen to this podcast, right? For my advice. The experience of Mercury and Venus retrograde in the same place. They're both going over the same place. They're not retrograde in different parts of the zodiac. They're retrograde essentially in the same place. They want you to understand something about all of us, me too, all of us, to understand something about the end and the new day, the end and the new beginning, and about surrender and letting go. So there's a message in there for each of us, okay? So we have to pay attention to this and work with this and go do our meditations and go do our inner work, because it's going to, at the end of the day, it's going to save us. The Sun and Venus are going to meet on Saturday the 22nd, which is next Saturday, a week from yesterday, and they will meet at 9:07 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday the 22nd, and they are now announcing that this is sort of the half point of Venus retrograde. When the planet that's retrograde comes back to the Sun like this and makes that conjunction, they are connecting with the light, and they are connecting with a lot of the answers and the purpose of the retrograde and how we are experiencing it and what it's about for us. So there's answers in that. There's answers in that Sun-Venus conjunction, right? The other thing you should know is that when we get past the eclipses, and we know that Venus and Mercury have stationed on eclipse points both times, going forward and going backward, that when we get to the point where we have the next full moon, which is a month from now, and it's about April 12th, and that's going to be the full moon that kicks out the eclipse period, that full moon is in Libra. And as you well know, Venus rules Libra. So Venus will be stationing direct at that point, and Venus will be coming out of this retrograde period, 6 weeks of retrograde, at the moment that that full moon occurs and Venus is ruling the full moon. So this is, Venus and Mercury are very deeply involved in this, so we have to pay attention, close attention to what the messages are that we're getting right now. In other news this week, we have Venus also making a sextile to Pluto, and that's going to be on Friday the 21st. And that's a very easy sense of, being able to transform things, right? And that's 5:32 p.m. on Friday the 21st, Eastern Time. We're also going to have a nice Sun sextile Pluto on Sunday the 23rd, because Pluto's in the early degrees of Aquarius, and the Sun is going to be in the early degrees of Aries. So Venus and Sun will be conjuncting. Obviously, what Venus does, Sun does, and then they're both going to be making this nice relationship to Pluto. And next week, we will have the Sun Mercury, but that's not for another week, okay? That's not for another week. That's the sort of the midpoint of the Mercury retrograde. But we've got quite a bit of time before then, because Mercury just went retrograde yesterday. So we've got another week and a half before that happens. So what we're looking at now is just working with ourselves, taking some internal time, taking some time to do some healing, time for ourselves. And if you're exhausted from all of this, sleep. If you're exhausted, stop. Do something else. do something that gives you more energy. And you should start to feel some energy coming back to you on Thursday the 20th. So that's what we're looking forward to when we start the Aries season. We've got to get a lot of stuff. Things are really dense when they're all in Pisces like this because it's a water sign, and it's, the house that contains all of our unconscious in the zodiac. It's the last part of the zodiac. It's all that unconscious energy, our sleep, our dreams, what's happening in our dreams. And what is happening in your dreams? Are you having like big dreams that are like waking you up at night? Or are you having restless sleep? A lot of that is common right now. So just be aware of that. And also be aware that we've got another outer planet changing signs. So we just got over Pluto changing signs, and we're still in the thick of adjusting to Pluto in Aquarius. And now we've got Neptune going into Aries. And this is going to be another bouncing back and forth thing. Just forget where it is for the moment. Just think about that. We're just having another outer planet changing signs. That's a lot. And then we're going to have Saturn, and then Uranus is going to do this later this year. Now, if you want to learn more about that, you can purchase my Liminal Labyrinth 2025 lecture, which you can buy on my website. It's what I did last December, and I know it's already March, but it gives a lot of good, juicy information for this year ahead and how this is going to be with this back and forth of the outer planets. This is very profound, really profound information. Big changes. But, it is exhausting. So if you need support during this time, of course, come to see me, because I don't just do podcasts and Instagram. I do astrological sessions, and I work with people, and we go into the deep answers that they need at this time when big changes like this are coming. If you're feeling profoundly affected by this, then come see me. My website is thegoldenastrologer.com. You can click book online, and you will get a session. And maybe you just want a Reiki session. Maybe you want to clear out the old energies and clear up the obstacles and do some healing and stuff. Maybe you want to listen to all the astrology in your chart, and then you book an astrology session with me. And I'm on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer. And if you want to work with me more long term, you can sign up for expansion mentoring with me, and we can take these aspects and bridge astrology with mentoring and some good work that we do when we're doing mentoring work, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, however long you want. And we work through all the patterns of what may be affecting you right now, whether it's astrology, whether you want to talk about career stuff, you want to advance your life. That's what we do in expansion mentoring. We advance your life, and we get you to a new place that you desire to be. So all of that can be yours if you contact me at my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. And I wish you a beautiful week ahead. This is the week in between eclipses. This is, not a week of eclipses, and, it's the week after an eclipse. And then next week we'll have another sort of week in between, because the eclipse will be at the end of the week. So gratitude to everyone for listening. Thank you so much for being present with me on the Golden Astrologer Podcast. And I will see you next week. And in the meantime, I will see you on the internet.